And we will wait our usual couple minutes here to the attendees flow in here. Make sure all the settings are correct here. I think they are. And we have 5 attendees so far. And here's Janice. Great. So Janice, we just started the meeting and we're just waiting, as we usually do, to a couple minutes here to let the attendees kind of make their way into the meeting here.
I'm not going to put up this. I am.
And so we try a sound check and a video check while we're waiting here.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, I have a little bit of a cold going on, so I might have to cough. Sorry, blow my nose.
All right.
Sorry. You got the video?
Hope, yeah.
There's no video, Jan.
No video yet.
Okay.
But you can, if you want, just stay on mute.
Well, let me just, we'll just test it here and then you can go back to muting the video here. I just sent you a video start request here. There you go.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, got one more user coming in here. Participant, attendee, I mean. And
I do want to say before we go out into the actual meeting that the office is all put together. So if any of you want to come by next week and take a walk around and look at it, you're more than welcome to.
I went into the lobby actually the other day, Angie. I was like blown away.
amazing day.
We could
No,
have
no.
hold our meeting right in the lobby.
No, you're in the wrong area. You're in the wrong place. I don't have a big lobby.
There's well, anyway, let's maybe get started if everybody's ready. So we are recording right now, just for everybody's information. And this is the regular March monthly meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and also the High Rock Home LLC board meeting. And we're conducting this meeting on a virtual basis because of the March 12th, 2020 executive order from Governor Baker allowing us to do that and suspending certain provisions of the Massachusetts open meeting law. And that as long as we can make the meeting available, provided that the public body shall ensure public access to the deliberations of the public body for interested members of the public through adequate alternative means of access. One of the things, if we have time tonight, but we can wait until next month, is to discuss it looks like this is sunsetting, and it appears to me that June 30th is going to be the last date where we can meet as a board, as a public body virtually, and we're going to have to go back to having in-person meetings. But many people have told all of us on one occasion or another that they rather like having the option, the attendees, of being able to attend on a virtual basis. So we'll need to figure out technically how to make that happen. So I'm going to call the roll. This meeting having been posted with a Needham town clerk by the Secretary of the Housing Authority with a notice dated March 14th. And I will call the roll. Reg Foster is here.
Eleanor Evans.
Ed
Great.
Scheidler is here.
Janice Bennett here.
And Penny, did we get you here too?
I said Penny Kirk here.
Yeah. Great. So we have a quorum and of everybody here. I only chair announcement that I have tonight is that Denise Garlick has volunteered to attend our meeting at some point and would ask to be able to help us and speak and discuss when we get to the mediation agenda item. And so I told her she was welcome to be here. I don't see that she is on the attendee list yet, but maybe somebody can keep an eye on that and let me know when that happens. And then I want to also introduce and welcome our new Assistant Executive Director, Cheryl Gosman, who is the one that's smiling on the screen with a big grin, I guess. And Cheryl needs no introduction to many people here, but for those people who don't know who she is, she's a former Needham Housing Authority resident many moons ago. And then she was a former tenant commissioner, resident commissioner for us for, I think it's 12 years.
13.
13 years, okay. She obviously, she's also a resident of Needham. She obviously knows a lot about public housing in general and the Needham Housing Authority in particular. So I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody on the board to welcome you to your first meeting and wish you the best of luck as we go up and down the roller coaster as we are. I think we were doing back when I first met you in 2008. So
Full circle.
yeah,
Full circle. Thank you, Reg.
thank you. So I'm going to go to the agenda first. We have resident input, as usual, as our first agenda item. And I see I have a hand raised from Sue Biazizo. So Sue, you get to go first. You should be able to unmute your microphone. Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I have a couple of quick things. Actually, this is for, well, Angie. Hopefully you're going to get the new website up and running because a lot of folks could not access anything because you've got January, February, and March 2022. You don't have the regular March meeting up on 22, and all the rest of them are 2021. So I did get the board packet, but of course not everybody gets it. And so I was able to send in the Zoom link and the agenda to some folks. But a new address, new hours, need to be put up there. It's still the old website.
Yeah, we just gained access to get on there, and I was worried about getting the packet together this week, but I'm glad you mentioned that. I will update that.
And I'm hoping that you can pass this on to Gary because I can never get a clear answer. I know that the door guys were up here the other day to fix our electric doors in building 46. But we need to know if they're coming back up because we cannot, it's very, very, very difficult to open the doors from the outside manually. They're probably like pushing 75 pounds to open the door. So, and the little key locks that you put your key on the building wall, those have been removed. So,
Okay.
And then the last thing is, and this is especially important, the pavement in the parking lots, on the road. We've got chunks of asphalt that are popping up everywhere. We have tons and tons of potholes. The parking lots down behind Robert Cook Drive are an absolute horrendous sight, and I would welcome anybody to take a walk down there. Up on Seabed's Way, we have such huge potholes and people have fallen. And we can't afford to wait 3 or 5 years to get the pavement done. This is, we've already, half of Seabed's Way was done just over 3 years ago. And then due to mismanagement, we couldn't get the other half done. And it's just an absolute wreck. And
So I'm glad you're bringing that up. I went by there today. It is awful. So when I got back to the office, I sat with Gary because there's 2 projects. I told him he needs to stop going before I head out, which is because it's this year. It's the paving at Captain Robert Cook and Seabeds all in one, and the camera project as well. So he's going to start on those 2 projects because I made sure I put it in the first year just so we can get all done and all in one shot and not in segments. So he's going to start working on that. So I'll make sure before I leave.
my biggest concern is when, I don't know who you have fill in the potholes, but they, unless it's a professional, they
That's
don't
right.
last.
That's right. And that's what this will be. This is like ripping up the whole old pavement and redoing the whole thing.
So when can we expect that to get done?
So he has to put it out. He's got to put out the bid, and then people have to bid because it's a big project. And that's why they did it in segments, so they wouldn't have to be put out to bid.
Okay,
The only
so
way to get it done is to put it out for bid and get it started. So he's gonna start doing that.
So
I talked
what
to him
what happens if a lot of our folks who are disabled and visually impaired, if they fall and hurt themselves?
Well, I think in the meantime, like I told him, he needs to go back and fill in the safety ones right now with the temporary asphalt that they've been doing, patching it up. In the meantime, and then start that project going to get the whole paving going. It is awful.
We just hope nobody gets hurt,
Yeah.
and nobody's tires get blown.
Mm-hmm.
And ice forming down in the parking lots down on Robert Cook Drive, which is dangerous for a lot of people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
It is pothole season all over the town and everywhere else. So, yeah. Anything else you have on your mind, Sue, there?
no, just welcome, Cheryl. I'll
Thank
see
you,
you
sir.
later.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next up is Kalpana, who should be able to speak now. Go ahead and try it out, Kalpana. See if we can hear you here.
Good evening. I
We can hear
have only one question, which you may answer after the board meeting, or you may write email. I do not need immediate response. And the question is, yesterday, project funding requests in FY 2023-02, Needham Housing Authority Design Linden Chambers. I need more explanation and what is the plan. So you may write me email instead of holding the whole meeting to explain. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalpana. Anything else?
No, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And now our next hand up is Ross Donald. So Ross, let's see if we can hear you here. Go ahead, Ross.
Mute.
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead, Ross.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. First of all, for the first time in 3 years, I received the digital board package by email, unsolicited. So every other time I've received it, I've had to ask for it. So in 3 years. So thank you for that. But that's the way it should be. information should be shared. I had to go to the CPC meeting and talk with their staff people and get the board package that they'd prepared for last night's meeting. And the only thing I'd heard from them was a previous presentation made like a month or two before. This information, when I finally got it, it held a lot of information that I'd never seen before. And I'm not persuaded that the commissioners have even seen that presentation. It was an amalgam of what CPA did and so forth. But anyway, it was beautiful job, a lot of information and a lot worth discussing. But a lot of information is not getting presented. And the problem is it's not just getting not presented to the residents. That means it's not getting presented to the population, town meeting members. I'm a member of town. I'm not getting any information from this unless I specifically attend every NHA meeting, which I've tried to do, and that hasn't even been adequate. So I have to attend all the CPC meetings now too. But anyway, my solution was, and I've just started advocating for a clearinghouse, an information clearinghouse. The town is interested. They're developing a web page. People should be able to have, and whenever there's a reference to a town, a plan from 2007 or something like that, or plans that we've looked at that refer to meetings and retreats and planning sessions from 2017, or they refer to other things from 2011. We should go through these documents. Otherwise, we're spending another $1 million to do almost the very same thing. So anyway, an information clearinghouse would help where we have people that act as reference librarians that answer questions. People call in looking for information and they don't just get referred to, as people have done in the past, that's on the webpage. That's like telling somebody, it's in the library. If I have a
Just
question.
want to give you a heads up, but you got about a minute left here, okay?
Yeah, okay. A number of things have been ignored, and I realize that, I'm not really objecting to moving forward and making progress on these things. But the information, a lot of the information has been generated in the past, and I'm not sure that a lot of that information has been considered. I think there should be a survey of the surveys that have been done. BID's doing a survey one every 3 years. We should get all the surveys to get, everybody wants to know what the residents think. I get that impression from the surveys that are, is there a way to see how I'm looking on the screen?
Oh, your video is not coming through.
It's not. All right, well, that's the kind of thing. Yeah, I have a problem with Zoom meetings. That's an agenda item coming up. Zoom meetings are not adequately public,
I just want to let you know your time's up, but I can respond to that. In the
don't
next
do it. Well,
couple of
that's an agenda item,
we
right?
do
That's
need
an
to.
agenda item.
Yep.
You don't need
We
to
will be
respond
doing-
now.
We will be responding to it. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Um,
go back to in-person meetings here.
yeah.
And that may be better.
All right, well, there are a number of other issues, and I think an information clearinghouse would help to address a lot of people's specific concerns. We're very concerned about, here's what it's come down to for me. I'd like to find a way to systematically address my problem with a leaky faucet. I've brought this up at board meetings. There's a way to do it if you need to conceptualize it with a big picture, but I don't need $1 million to get my leaky faucet fixed. I've made proposals to the board. They've gone to previous executive directors. And I think that we need to form, I don't know, either for like the last time you did work on High Rock 1, right?
So Ross, with your
it was
time
the,
sort of
neighborhood,
going into 5
the
minutes here,
NO Inc.
I would suggest that you file a work order report so it gets into the system and it can be
Okay, I don't know
addressed
what
by
that
maintenance
means.
tomorrow.
No, that isn't the problem. We're trying to fix something now rather than you want to work on a design that's going to create a new present for people 50 years from now. Somebody
just
worked
don't
on,
wanna wait another
doing
month
design
for
work
you
50
to-
years ago in order to create the present, which is a
That's not what I'm
failure
trying
in a
to
lot
do.
of
I'm
ways.
sorry,
You need
but
to make
is there
improvements.
anything
All right.
else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Reg, Denise is signed in.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, Representative Garlick has joined us, and she said that she would just sit in as an attendee while we do our normal agenda until we get to the mediation agenda item, which hopefully won't be too long here. So, great. So let me just make an adjustment here. Okay, so I think we're ready to go to, I see no other resident tenant input hands up here. I do, as a matter of practice, since Zoom has got this problem, the attendees can't see who's attending. I just like to go through it. First of all, there's somebody who got the telephone number 508 358, et cetera, is attending. Representative Garlick, Jessica Reese is in attendance tonight, our LTO president from Cooksbridge, Calpana, as we know. MK is a guest, Ross is a guest. Steve, doesn't say Steve who here, and Subi Azizo is with us tonight here. So, all right, let's go to agenda item number A. And that we're following our procedure we've started trying out in the last couple of months, which is to get some of the routine agenda items off the approved before we move into the ones that require more substantial discussion. So that is the approval of the Needham Housing Authority bill check warrant that is in your board packet for a total of $347,700.25 worth of checks. I make a motion that we approve that warrant. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Eleanor, I think, got in there. And is there any questions about the check register for our executive director? And soon our assistant executive director next month. I don't hear any, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. It passes 5-0. Okay, I'm going to move on to agenda item number B, which is the approval of the High Rock Homes LLC bill check warrant that is in your board packet for the amount of $31,876.06. I make a motion that we approve that. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Penny. Any questions about those checks on the register this month? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so that passes 5-0. We're now going to move on to the minutes, agenda item C. There's an error in the agenda that wasn't noted until we were cross-checking it after it went out. But it turns out that we already approved the minutes of the February 4th, 2022 minutes. And so that's, we'll strike that off the agenda. So the only minutes we have today are the February 17th, 2022 minutes of our regular February meetings. We don't have minutes yet drafted for our special board meeting that we had a week ago, the 9th. So we will be looking at those at our next regular meeting for approval. So you'll find those minutes in the packet with our minute taker in attendance tonight for the first time, Cheryl Gosman, who's been doing this for the last 6 or plus months for us. And I make a motion that we approve those minutes. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Second, are there any additions, corrections, et cetera, for those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so the minutes are approved by a vote of 5-0. On our routine review and approval list, here is item number 3, which is the K&G remodeling final payment and approval documents that are all in your board packet that you received at the beginning of the week. And I will make a motion and a second, and if we have any questions about it, we can talk about it here. So I make a motion where is it to approve the K&G payment for the exterior doors project. And do I hear a second?
Second.
And I probably should state, I believe that amount is for $4,021.19. Any questions or comments or anything you want to add, Angie, about this is their final retainer payment that we're authorizing for them? I hear none. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? There are none, so it passes unanimously 5-0. All right, so that takes care of A, B, and C. Now we get to agenda item number D, which is status update, discussion and approval, executive director search process. And I'm going to make it sort of an initial presentation of what's happened since last week when we had our special board meeting on that subject, and then propose that we kind of tackle any next steps, comments, et cetera, that we think we should be doing and make comments we're making as a board, sort of in that order, starting with the executive director search, as an interim executive director search, because that's our most pressing, immediate challenge here. So following that meeting, I, and with using the input of the board from that meeting, I did go reach out to the 2 recommended search consultants from DHCD and solicited proposals from them, and they're responded very quickly, and those proposals are in your board packet for our discussion in a little bit here. And that's from Pat Grace and also Rich Lico of DVM Mainsail. Rich is the search consultant that we've been using on and off since 2018. Pat Grace is new. I did put out an email blast to everybody in my network that I've collected over the years, who's helped us out in various capacities, for the modernization redevelopment initiative and other things. And I got everybody, many responses, most of which is they don't have anybody to suggest for either an interim ED or a permanent ED. I did get a couple of suggestions for other potential search consultants, but when I checked with them, they were too busy and not available. You will see in your board packet that I also, just for your information, the board's information, a few days ago, I printed out a screenshot of a list of 13 active executive director searches that are advertised in the Mass NARO job listings here. So there, and you can see for yourself the various cities and towns that are involved, but many of them, most of them are sort of in our, sort of our size, I guess I would put it that way. So there's a lot of other housing authorities looking at this point in time. I also, based on last meeting's suggestions, I reached out to the Cambridge Housing Authority and working through Margaret Moran, made my way to the person in charge. He's called Director of Operations of the Cambridge Housing Authority, and had 2 meetings, and then he had a 3rd meeting where he interviewed Angie and Cheryl Gosman just yesterday to kind of get a sense of the scope and scale of what was needed by ourselves with respect to an interim executive director. I also was reaching out to him for any referrals he might have to candidates that might be interested in being an IED is what I'm calling it, although that's an unfortunate term in this day and age of the Ukraine invasion here, but it's easy to say. And anybody who might be a permanent ED. He didn't come up with any recommended referrals, but he did say the Cambridge Housing Authority has gone in to that part of the business as well, which is providing management of other housing authorities or partial management of them. And let me know that Belmont Housing Authority is actually completely run now by Cambridge Housing Authority management personnel. They still have the maintenance employees, and others are still Belmont Housing Authority employees. So they have already had some experience doing this sort of thing, and they're interested in it. And I have not received a proposal from him yet, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions from my notes from that meeting, which I have right here. Let's see. That's pretty much the report of what, the spade work that's been done since the last week. So if everybody's okay, we'll start with just the interim executive director position. Go ahead, Penny.
You asked me to find out the name of the person who was an interim director in the past and was wonderful. And I did find out her name is Rita Osborne.
Very interesting. So thank you. And more generally, I asked all of you to tap into your networks. Interestingly, Rita Osborne is somebody I've run into from time to time before, and I've had an email out to her for, I think, 4 or 5 days, but I've not heard back from her. So that's still out there as a possibility. And without even knowing that you hadn't, recovered the name here, I came across it another way here. Actually, I think Angie suggested it. Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it. And Angie's also reaching out to her network for the same reason. I should ask before I proceed onward, did any of the other commissioners have any luck turning up any candidates, particularly for the interim executive director? I see head nodding around the screen. So, one of the things I asked both search consultants before they submitted the proposal is, could you come up with an interim executive director candidate for us? And Pat Grace said, no, I probably couldn't do that, but I'm very, very motivated and interested in finding you a permanent new executive director. And you'll see that reflected in the proposal that hopefully you've had a chance to read in the past few days. Rich Lico said, yeah, I actually can think of somebody. How about Steve Merritt? Those of you who don't know Steve Merritt, he has been around forever and had just recently retired from the Norwood Housing Authority. I'd heard a couple, 3 months ago. Steve has been at Norwood. You see his resume, so I'm not going to repeat it here, but he's been in Norwood many years. He's been the president of first Mass NARO, then New England Regional NARO, and then National NARO. That's all NARO, countrywide NARO. And he's been very influential and very active in promoting affordable housing, not only here in Massachusetts, but nationwide. And then when I went through his resume even further, which I did not know, I knew about those things, but I did not know that he was formerly a commissioner of the Needham Housing Authority from 1980 to 1983 or 1993, before all of our time here. Maybe he's the person that can answer for us how the heck our office building at 28 Seabeds Way became an office building and turned it from a community center. But more importantly, He has familiarity with us, 40 years ago. And he also 30 or 40 years ago, and he's also a resident of the town of Needham. I thought that was a very interesting resume myself, but I did now like to just open up the floor for discussion and comment as to where we go from here. Anybody want to go first? Go ahead, Ed.
I was very impressed with the way Pat outlined what she was going to do for us. Thought that was very effective. Of course, D&V Mainsail did tell us what they were going to do, but the way Pat presented it, I thought was very effective.
Yes, go ahead, Eleanor.
So I actually was, I was more impressed with how DMV main cell talked about, national recruitment. Not that I think that we're going to bring somebody from some other state necessarily, but then they talked about personal contacts and anyway, kind of beating the bush to find people. Whereas I found Pat Grace's rather passive in terms of, well, I'll post the position, I'll help you post the position. But it didn't mention sort of doing stuff that went beyond, posting the position. And that could have been an oversight on her part, but it just talks about, posting it and collecting and reviewing all submitted applications, et cetera. So I'd want to know more about, what proactive steps might she take to help us find candidates?
When I did talk to Pat, she said she's just getting into the search business after spending 20 plus years, I think she says it in her proposal, as the regional legal counsel for the Southeast region of Massachusetts. So I guess all those smaller Cape-oriented communities from Plymouth on downward, all band together and has been using Pat as that counsel. So I think her experience in doing searches is maybe not as multitudinous as it is for Rich Lico. But I'm guessing here when I say that. Any other comments? Penny, do you have any comments? Nope. How about you, Janice? Hey, you're on mute, I'm sorry.
Hi,
There you go.
okay. I just want to piggyback on what Ed said. For now, it's kind of early, but haste not waste too. So.
Well, and I was sort of steeped in this and had a chance to sort of think it through as well. You were really doing the second agenda item, engaging the search consultant, but there's no reason we can't do it in that order. Seems to me this is a 6 to 9 month process, as we discussed last week, just because of what you have to do by way of advertising, doing the process, the elapsed time between putting ads in and how many weeks you need to do that, and giving people a chance to respond, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, one thing we could do as a board is request both consultants to attend another meeting, probably not waiting for a month to our next monthly meeting, but it would be a special meeting, and interview them each and see what we think. Because, in all fairness, I've had a chance to talk to Pat once, and then I've dealt with Rich Lico on and off, since 2018, but others on the board wouldn't even recognize him on the street. So would that make sense to everybody as maybe a path forward with the, search consultant for the permanent executive director? Yes, Penny?
I did notice that Pat included a bunch of references.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just sent that out today because she had dribbled them in, but I noticed she didn't have any, so I asked her to do that. And so she has a whole bunch of references. And of course, I haven't called them. We haven't decided what to do next here, but we could also call the references first, and if they pass muster, still do what I just suggested, or we could do it the other way around, whichever the board thinks is the right way to go here. Well, I'm hearing sort of no comment to mean maybe it is, let's make that the tentative plan to find a date and time where we can invite them probably to another Zoom meeting, so it will be easy on everybody, one at a time to do interviews. Does that make sense to everybody?
I'd like
Okay.
to see.
I hear a resounding yes
on the
here.
same
Okay.
day.
Okay. Now coming back to the interim executive director, I got to say, after all the pessimistic comments that I made a week ago, I actually wouldn't have predicted that we might have not one, but two potential paths to filling that that position. And I just want to remind everybody that Angie's last day is May 6th. And that's just about 7 weeks from tomorrow. So that's kind of around the corner from my point of view here. And ideally, you would want to get an interim executive director on board at least a couple of weeks before Angie leaves. So there's some overlap time, and that will facilitate a better, smoother handoff. Another, again, I know of Steve Merritt. I've met him. I've heard of his reputation. And when I say I met him, I mean in conferences, but not in this sort of context. And I was impressed with the sort of proactive approach that the Cambridge Housing Authority took. And his name was Kevin Braga, who's the director of operations. And I said, what does that mean? And basically, he's in charge of running all the day-to-day stuff for the Cambridge Housing Authority, and there are 2,000 plus units, as well as the Belmont Housing Authority as their client in their management agreement. And the way they run things is he has 5 what they call district managers, is the name of the position, that report to him. And each district manager manages 3 to 7 properties or developments, in the sort of 300 to 700 ranges of units. And I was describing this to Angie actually, and she said, oh yeah, that's what they did in Worcester. That's what they do in Fall River and larger housing authorities. In essence, we didn't use that title in Worcester or Fall River, but a district manager is in essence the executive director position. So he has 5 executive directors positions reporting to him. And what he said to me is, I need to make sure that I can do a good job for you and that you're going to be, a satisfied customer. And that's why I'm taking my time here. And I wanted to interview Angie and Cheryl about just what is the day-to-day operations, who are the strong staff, things like the resident service director is leaving. So that's something that's got to be pursued, et cetera, et cetera. And then the way I would staff this is I would take one of my 5 people and offload him half time to somebody else, or hire a new person, backfill another person in, or promote somebody from within, and then free up. And he was talking about 20 hours a week. He came out in the sort of same range that we got from the Steve Merritt proposal, sort of a half time in interim executive director, helping to lead us through this transition period would probably be about the right level that would be needed. But he hadn't finished his analysis before tonight's meeting. And so I don't have anything further to say. So one of the things we can do is to perhaps invite Steve Merritt in for an IED interview, and then separately invite Kevin Braga for to make us a proposal, and maybe then have an interview about that proposal on how the Cambridge Housing Authority would provide this service to us. What do people think about that kind of approach? Go ahead, Ed.
I think that's the approach we need to take.
Yeah.
That certainly makes sense to me.
And Janice, you were saying?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. I'm on board with that totally.
Okay.
Me too.
Penny, Angie, Eleanor. Okay.
So
All right.
I just
So
have I just have a question. So Steve Merritt came recommended by Rich Lico, was that right?
he came proposed by Rich Lico. I'm not quite sure what their relationship is. If I had heard that Steve Merritt had left, but I wasn't aware that he would be open to, an interim gig for the next few months. But I don't know what exactly, if they have any kind of relationship whatsoever, or whether Rich was just doing something to help him win the permanent search director job here.
Well, and that's what I was wondering was, would our moving forward with Steve Merritt imply anything to, not that we would, would Rich and his company be assuming that, I don't know, or would it affect our, do we have to enter into some sort of engagement with them over Steve Merritt for the interim, even regardless of whether we're moving forward with them for the permanent search?
So Rich did not bring that up, Rick, and I did not ask.
Yeah.
And if that had been a quid pro quo, I would expect him to say something in his proposal here. So
yeah.
And I think
Can I add
actually,
something, Reg, when
yeah,
you're
go
done?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Angie.
I think it's important that you all know, during my interview with Kevin Braga, when he was asking me about staff, I think what was great about Cambridge, you all know that Salim is new. He's a new bookkeeper. And so he needs that additional training. So I brought that. So I made him aware that the management and the maintenance, they're pretty self-sufficient. They're doing well. So I don't think Cambridge would have to worry about them. I think the only two areas would be making sure that Cheryl gets the training that she needs, and watching over Salim. And what Kevin said was he has a whole accounting team where they can come in and make sure Salim is doing what he needs to do. And my other concern too is handling ELOCs, because he does not handle that. That's where I go down and I draw money. Carol used to do that, but Carol wasn't there. He couldn't pick it up. So I just took it on. So, and Cheryl don't know any of that. So, and again, he said, we can handle all that too. And I'm thinking, meanwhile, they can train Cheryl on how to do all that kind of stuff, and Salim, because the maintenance and the management is pretty self-sufficient, where they don't need, the much oversight. So I just wanted to add that they have a whole team ready to go to put that in and make sure that goes smoothly. So, because you got to remember, most bookkeepers handle all that. So Steve may come in and say, he may be thinking, well, the bookkeeper is going to do all the drawdowns and the uploads to Cap Hub that I do. So you got to keep that in mind too. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That's it.
Yes, they do have a bench, just like when we hired them for the planning and development department. They have a deep bench of people who've worked there a long time that can be drawn upon on whatever problem comes up. I think it's
And it can be something temporary. You can keep them in there for what? The next year to make sure everyone is trained fully. And then after that year, do what you all need to do. That's just my thought.
And for all those who don't, which is all of you who don't know what ELOCs is, it is a Byzantine, complicated 1980s mainframe computer system that HUD has that is not intuitive to use, And that's where we get all our money from the feds. So you have to actually, there's all these things that have to be done every 3 months, every 6 months, and they have to be blessed by the chair, whoever's currently the chair. And if the chair doesn't log in for 6 months, they kick you out of the system. And then you have to go all through a process of getting your password and user ID reactivated again. So it's not particularly user friendly, but that's where all the money comes from. So that's what Angie's referring to. Well, I think we have a go forward plan at this point. So I think the one thing I need to ask everybody is to pull out their calendars and let me know sometime next week, a couple of date time windows that we could have a special board meeting. And I guess there's two special board meetings. One is to interview the interim executive director candidates, if you will, Cambridge Housing Authority or Steve Merritt. And the second one would be to interview the two consultants that we are considering here. And we don't necessarily have to do it now. We could maybe it would be a simpler thing to do and more efficient for tonight's meeting is for all of you to just look at your calendar for the next 2 weeks and send me date time windows where you could do it. Or no, better say, where you absolutely can't do it, since we're trying to get everybody's schedule together here. And then I can see where we can find a time that works for all of us. I'm sure you all agree with me. I think it's particularly important for all of us to be at both sets of interviews for obvious reasons. So let me leave you with that action item. And I won't look at it tonight, but if you get it to me sometime tomorrow, and I will see if I can get these interviews scheduled, and we'll get them onto the town clerk's calendar as special board meetings here. Okay, we're done. D, let me see if I forgot to do anything here. Let me ask you one more question. I think we should probably interview both Grace and Steve and Rich Lico, but we could start with Pat Grace, I guess, because some of us know Rich. Penny was there for the last round of work that Rich did. But my inclination is we should interview them both and consider them both equally here. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to raise that because don't want to do anything that's unnecessary here. Okay, the last item on this thing is this agenda item is appointing the executive director search committee. So we had a bit of everybody provided their input last week, and I kind of tried to put together a slate of 5 people based on that input for the executive director search committee. So this wouldn't be for the interim executive director. I think the board would be doing that themselves, but this is to work with whoever we pick as a search consultant to do the process we described last week. And Janice Bennett and Ed Scheidler graciously volunteered to be the 2 board commissioners to do that. And ideally, we don't have a third one because it really bogs things down to have to try to schedule a public meeting every time the committee gets together. And then I contacted Karen Huey that we discussed last week, and Karen is ready to step into the breach again and help us out. So she's willing to be part of this search committee and will be very valuable because she's been through it twice before. And then I also was able to touch base with Jessica Reese briefly, but the proposal would be that the Cooksbridge Tenant Association would propose 1 member of the search committee. And the 5th one, I'm proposing a fresh tonight would be Cheryl Gosman, who has been through this interestingly herself before. I guess one could sort of say maybe there's a bit of, I don't know, given that Cheryl will be working for this person, maybe that's not a good idea. But I was looking around, just trying to think of who would be the best qualified people to, produce the best possible result for us. And that's who I came up with. So what do people think? What do the commissioners think about that slate of 5 here? Ed?
I support the slate.
I do
And-
too.
Thumbs up.
How does Cheryl feel about that?
How does Cheryl feel about that?
Yeah, okay.
Too soon to tell.
Soon to tell. Well, we could, Cheryl, if Cheryl does feel uncomfortable about it, and I haven't talked to Cheryl directly about this, so speak for yourself for Cheryl. I mean, you can always say, I'd feel better if somebody else stepped in, and we can do that. Remember, we're not really, it's another month or 2 before the search committee really starts to work at screening those preliminary resumes with a search consultant here. So it's not I think it symbolically means a lot, especially since we have a lot of people watching this as we go into town meeting. We've got, several $1 million worth of CPA funding proposals. I've been asked many times in the last week as the word is leaked out, is this a big deal? And I think it's important that we put our best foot forward here. And I think one of them is to designate or appoint a great search committee here. So that's my opinion. Eleanor, what do you think?
I think it sounds good, contingent on how Cheryl feels about her searching.
Okay. Well, Cheryl, do you want to recuse yourself at the moment, or are you ready to for us to have this vote here?
Well, it seems to me that you've got a few things going on. You're going to interview your consultants, and there's a possibility of bringing on Cambridge Housing. So I just don't, I think I'd like to wait and just see how things sort of pan out in the immediate future,
Mhm.
and then determine, if I would like to sit on the committee going forward. I do have a lot on my plate with, working and getting training and doing meeting minutes as part of my new role. So there's a lot going on with me. And so this is the first I've heard of it. So I would not like to answer right now, if that's okay.
Well, one way we can go, commissioners, if it's okay, is we can appoint 4 of the 5 members of the search committee at this point. So we actually have one in place, and we can, again, given that the real work doesn't start for at least a month, wait until we appoint that 5th person. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we establish an executive director search committee for the permanent executive director position, consisting of Janice Bennett and Ed Scheidler and Karen Huey, and a person to be designated by the president of the Cooksbridge Tennis Association. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Penny. Any further discussion?
Just a
Hearing
quick
none.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This committee will also search for an interim executive director.
My thinking is no, because we really have to, if we do the interviews next week and make the hire the following week, I don't think there's a role there for the search committee. Go ahead,
Fine.
Ellen.
So in terms of the representative from the Cooksbridge Tenants Association, is it appointed by the president, or is it appointed by the tenants organization?
By the Tenants Association.
Okay.
I assume that's their process, but I would expect to hear who that is from the president, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I see. Okay.
Okay, with those clarifications, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? There are none. So that carries 5-0. Okay, great. Okay, now we're on agenda item D. This is our status updates for various important things we have going. The first one of which is participation in the housing plan working group. And Ed is.
Reg, may I interrupt?
Yes,
What about the local designer screening committee?
we're going to get that. We're getting to that in a moment, I think. Okay. So if you see, that's an agenda item that we just went to, their third bullet there. And so you're up first in that agenda item. Do you see what I mean?
No, I'm lost here. Let me put my glasses on.
All right.
E,
Agenda
status
item
update,
E
Number 1. E1 is you, Ed.
and E3 third bullet is what you were just asking for.
Okay. Got it. Found it. Okay.
Okay.
E2 third bullet.
So I was just teeing you up, Ed. I guess there was a recent meeting last week, and Ed has proposed actually a great suggestion, which he then volunteered to model behavior-wise for all of us, is that to the maximum extent possible, people should submit reports on what they, is on the agenda. People can read the report, and we can save some time by not having it repeated, and people can just ask questions. So thank you, Ed, for that suggestion.
Assuming everybody has read the information provided, are there any questions?
Exactly.
I like the idea.
Hopefully it'll save some time. So hearing no questions, I don't think a move is necessary.
No, nothing is, it's just a status update. Although
Right.
I would add, comment wise, you might want to draw everybody's attention to the next public meeting that's coming up
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. On
Particularly
March,
our audience. I'm thinking, remember, we have all
Oh,
these attendees that might want to attend.
on March 24th, the Housing Plan Working Group will make a public workshop and request participation from the community for some fresh ideas, which will then be worked into those ideas that are generated from this workshop will be worked into the draft of the new housing plan that's in the process of being prepared. So that will be announced. It'll be in the newspaper and whatever other local advertising that can be accomplished.
And they're sending around flyers, one of which is
Yeah.
in your board packet in
Right.
the Ed report. So my impression from that is they really are encouraging attendance and getting all the ideas, however wild and crazy, out on the table because they're looking for good ideas and want to make sure that everybody's got their chance to put their 2 cents in.
It will be a Zoom. This flyer is in your packet. And it will be a Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock on Thursday, March 24th. So people-
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to agenda item number 2, which is the Modernization Redevelopment Initiative. In your board packet is the monthly report from the Cambridge Housing Authority as to what they've been up to for the last month. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or comments?
I'd like to say I was impressed with it. They're moving right along.
Yeah, it's one of the things when I've been asked about the management transmission we have going right now. One of my answers is, over my years here, this is like the 4th executive director search. So it happens every couple, 3 years anyway. It's the kind of the nature of things at small housing authorities. And it's exactly why we decided a year ago about this time to bring on a third party consulting firm like Cambridge that can really keep the momentum up as we inevitably face the ups and downs, including, new Omicron spikes that nobody expected this time last year when we decided to go forward. So it seems to make a sense to a lot of people. Okay, any other comments or questions there about their work? So that kind of segues right into my report as the Community Preservation Committee designee, representative of the Housing Authority. So we had the public hearing last night. I know at least some of you attended last night. My impression is that of course, I was on a hot seat, but from the point of view of the Needham Housing Authority, it went pretty well. But does anybody who happened to attend have any further comments for us tonight? Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, I thought you did rather well for us, Rich. I was proud of you on all 4 points. But I didn't stay on for the Charles River. I guess they're more or less rivals, if you will, lack of a better term. Can you just elaborate a little bit on how they fared?
Yeah, so basically a week ago, on the 8th of March, they sent a letter to the chair of the Community Preservation Committee that's in your board packet. So that was one day before we had our emergency special board meeting to discuss Angie's resignation here. And we didn't have time to discuss it last week. And basically what it said, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but
No,
to me-
you sent it to us, I believe.
yeah, I did. I'm just going to read one paragraph, which I think is the key paragraph that you're referring to. It says, due to the proximity of the East Militia Heights property to our main offices and existing residential and day programs, the Charles River Center plans to aggressively bid on the subject property once the federal government releases their RFP with the desire to acquire the property for future use. So that's something that's been spoken about on and off for as long as I've been tracking this property. But this is the first time the Charles River Board has made, and this is from the board chair, by the way, who, basically made such a definitive declaration. We've had, during the CPC process for the last 3 or 4 months, cordial relationships and cooperative relationships leading up to finally on February 25th. So we're talking about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the invitation to come to the Charles River Center by our team, which is really Margaret Moran and Natalie Jansen, our project manager from Cambridge Housing Authority, and myself and Angie, to have a brainstorming session. And nothing definitive came out of that brainstorming session yet, nothing definitive, but a lot of very positive ideas were discussed. And then a couple weeks later, out came that letter. I have, you might have noticed that I have scheduled a executive session at the end of this meeting because there are ideas that have been discussed there that in essence qualify for being discussed in executive session. And I would like to share those with the board, but I would like not to do that in direct response to your question right now, Janice.
Okay.
And my intent is, if I can make the technology work, that may sabotage us. I found a last minute Zoom glitch that I was just dealing with Angie about half an hour before the meeting. But my intent is to do what we are required to do, which is to declare and take a roll call vote to adjourn into executive session, and then, but declare that we are coming back out into public session to discuss whatever the result of that is and any decision we might want to make with respect to our application that right now is before the CPC. Just went through the public hearing last night. If you all received a Zoom meeting invitation in your email, you might have, just about a half an hour before this meeting from Angie, and she's going to host a a Zoom executive session meeting that we will adjourn into. Because it turns out we can't do this using the webinar technology I have right now. And I didn't find that out until about an hour and a half or 2 hours ago. But we will leave this meeting running live so that we can then all come back to this meeting. And if we have anything to discuss that should discuss in public session, we will do that. And if there's a vote to be taken, then we will do it at that point, and then we will adjourn for the night. So that's the plan.
Oh, I'm sorry I asked.
I'm sorry. I'm glad you asked. It was, I was going to say it anyway, so don't put it on you. Okay. But any other comments on last night's? I think for applications number 1, 2, and 4, there was nothing but strong support, and that includes there was a bunch of emails and letters that came in, late that, weren't shown at the last night's meeting. So the next 2 pit stops here on the process is next week. The chair of the CPC briefs the FinCom on Wednesday as to what these applications are, all 9 of them, not just our 4. And then on the 30th of January of March is the CPC meeting is scheduled to make have the final formal vote on which warrant articles are approved to go forward to town meeting in the spring. So I think everybody would appreciate it if we could express an opinion with respect to the CPC letter, hopefully by next Wednesday, but we'll see what you think when I brief you in the executive session. Okay? All right. So I think that takes care, that's us to the appointment of the designer selection committee. And so this is just an interim report. No decision required tonight, even though I put a placeholder resolution there. I've identified 3 of the 5 slots, that Cambridge Housing Authority is recommending us to have, a 5-member committee, which is one has to be a staff member, senior staff member from the Needham Housing Authority. So that's Gary Kupal, for obvious reasons. One needs to be a member from the Cambridge Housing Authority, and that would be our project manager, Natalie Jansen. And that person would run the committee and make sure we're doing everything right and on time and according to regulations. And the third person, I also asked Karen Huey if she would be willing to be the tenant resident representative on that committee. Because as we all know, she's a resident at Linden Chambers. And this is for the purpose of picking an architect engineering firm to actually do the schematic design over the next year, 14 months. And she's been enormously productive and involved in everything over the last 10 years, 15 years, and I think she would be a good candidate. So she has agreed to do that if we decide to go forward with that. The other 2 positions, and I put something in your board packet, are still a work in progress. One is that it has to be an architect or an engineer, a registered architect and engineer. So I've got feelers out to 3 people who are been living in town forever and who are looking for volunteer candidates, and haven't gotten back to me with anybody yet. And then the 5th person ideally is a citizen at large position, a citizen, a leading citizen type in Needham. I just as a to indicate, I put a Dan Matthews as a placeholder there because he will be retired from the select board by then, but he's not available for that position or interested, but he's certainly one of the people that's helping me look for the right person to have on that designer selection committee. And again, just as a reminder, it can't be any of us board members because ultimately that local designer selection committee will make a finalist recommendation to us, the board, and then we have to make the final choice. So that's where we're at on that. Go ahead, Ed.
Do I understand correctly that DHCD has a list of the registered architects and or engineers that they can supply to us?
No, they don't. They don't maintain a list of recommended people. This has to be a Needham-based person. So the person needs to live in Needham, but if they live somewhere else and they have a Needham-based office, apparently it doesn't qualify. So,
Okay.
And if you think about that across all our towns and cities, they don't maintain that. What I probably said last week was they have a statewide designer selection committee, a DHCD designer selection committee that meets once a month. And they're the ones who pick for us and oversee the RFP process and the advertising process. And they'll make the final pick unless we set up our own local committee, at which point they don't make the final pick. They'll just pick the top 3 to 5 finalists and then send it to our committee to rank them and make the final pick. Okay, any other thoughts or questions? Okay, so we are now at agenda item number F, mediation. And if Denise is still with us, I believe she is. I'm going to do the promote to panelist trick here, and hopefully she's expecting this. And here it comes. And there she is. Thank you, Representative Garlick, for bearing with us through all that other pretty important business here.
I thought it was very important business. I was glad to be listening in. So first I wanted to say hello to Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl.
Hi, Denise. It's good to see you.
Very good to see you. And then of course, hello to Reg and Janice and Eleanor and Ed and Penny. So I wanted to speak to you, number one, about why I'm here tonight and what capacity and what hats I'm wearing, and then to make a recommendation. So to all of you who I know so well, I'm joining you wearing my hat as the state representative because number one, the residents of the Needham Housing Authority are my constituents. And secondly, as you all know, the Needham Housing Authority is a quasi-state agency. I hope that I have demonstrated to you my commitment to both the residents, to the staff, and to you all as commissioners in a variety of ways. One of which is when Angie first came, and it's good to see you tonight, Angie, gathering the community together and having the community introduce themselves to Angie. And by the community, I mean the other nonprofit organizations, some of the agencies in the town, and speak about what their role is and ways that they could partner effectively with the Needham Housing Authority, and particularly with Angie. And I know for Angie, many of those relationships were very positive relationships. And she enjoyed the support and the friendship and the respect of many of the leaders of our organizations and town departments. I also worked very hard as we started to talk. There have been many ways in which communication has been hampered between the residents and the staff, between the staff and the board, between the board and other board members. And one of the things that happened, and this was several years ago, is we had residents who were going to what they viewed as community leaders with their issues, with their concerns, and sometimes before they had actually discussed it with the Needham Housing Authority staff. And so we put together, after a tremendous amount of work with DHCD, a way to report issues and concerns. And DCHD wanted to call it the chain of command. I decided to call it steps to solutions. But we tried to organize the way that people's issues and concerns could be heard and dealt with. I think that worked somewhat. I don't think it has worked consistently. I think it's worth us doing more work on. And then I know that you know that I was able to secure $1.25 million in the state budget as we begin the renovation project and for capital expenditures. And I think it is one way, a very tangible way to demonstrate my commitment and my willingness to move forward with all of you. And in my discussions with the commissioners, it is clear to me that everyone wants to move forward. I think the place we're in right now is, how does the board move forward? How do we move forward in the search for an executive director? How do we move forward in a way that the residents are not only heard, but they are listened to? So in order to do that, I've had some informal conversations, some with staff, some with residents, some with some members of the board, but not all members of the board. What I am going to go ahead and tell you now is information that I have not shared with any individual member of the board, because I thought it was really important in my role that all of you hear from me at the same time, and you hear the information that I have at the same time, so that there is no implicit bias or other bias in what I'm presenting, and that somebody else has already been brought on board and somebody else might have information. What I believe sincerely is that the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners would benefit greatly from dealing with a mediator. I've heard that from individual people. So I have taken the responsibility of moving forward with what could that look like? How could we get ourselves on a more settled ground? We have a great deal of business to do. We have a great responsibility to the residents. We need to be a board that is positive and productive and can engage in constructive communication. I actually went to someone that I trust greatly around who could this mediator be. I think it's time for us to bring in somebody new, somebody who isn't steeped in either the history of housing of the Needham Housing Authority, or who comes in and is able to meet people new and fresh. The person that has recommended this individual to me is someone that I told you how much I trust this individual. I then contacted the individual, and his name is John Wortman. And for any of you who want to look him up, his name, you spell his last name, it's JONWORTMANN. So in my discussions with John Morton, I talked certainly about my perception of how communication could be improved among the commissioners. I want to say for all 5 of you, I deeply respect what each of you brings to the discussion for the Needham Housing Authority. The responsibility that you are willing to take on, which is greater than, I have to tell you, any other board that we have in the town, insofar as your legal responsibilities, your being a quasi-state agency, that responsibility is inferred to that. I do not believe in following very carefully, reading all of the minutes of the meeting, having a staff person who's usually on and debriefs me on your live meetings that happen. I do not believe that there is anyone on the Board of Commissioners that does not want the best for the Needham Housing Authority. I do believe it's been very difficult for you all to communicate with each other and understand perhaps what was the value behind what people were saying. John Wortman, the things that he concentrates on is resilience, leadership, and communication. I think at this point in time, Needham Housing Authority needs to do work on resilience as we think about a new executive director, certainly on leadership, and always on communication. He's published several books, but I thought you might be interested in knowing that he's published a book called Mastering Communication at Work, a book called Hijacked by Your Brain, and another book called The 3 Commitments of Leadership. in his life's work, at one point in his life, he was a minister. He has a strong internal drive to serve the residents of the housing authority. He has worked with dozens and dozens of municipalities. Many of them are surrounding neighbors, and he has worked with the town of Needham on the very issues that I think the commissioners of the Needham Housing Authority also want to work on. He is available to meet with us in the short term, and thought that he could come on board, be introduced to the commissioners, and begin kind of that discussion around shared values. Where are we really all trying to go? What is it that are our shared values, and moving forward? Different than our focus. I think one thing I've found in my relationships with the commissioners is that each commissioner has brought a focus into their discussions, a focus into where they're putting in their energies. I think we need to get back to the place that we hear our commissioners talking about their shared values, their shared goals. He believes that he can meet relatively in the short term with all of you and set the table for that discussion. And then he believed that there may well be a role for a mediator as you hire a new executive director and you begin to set out the agenda for your work with the new executive director, you work together. So it's a two-phase plan, an initial phase around leadership and communication, and then another phase around how we bring all these entities together, working together. I am making this recommendation to you with a most sincere heart, and with the greatest respect for the work that you're doing, but most of all, with the true belief that the housing authority needs to serve the residents in a way in which the residents understand that their needs are paramount and that there is great respect. And then we also need to give that same thought, that same respect to the staff who's dealing with a state agency that has many, many requirements of it. And so I do believe most sincerely that this is a moment in which we can have a reset, and we should have a reset. I think without the reset, many of the excellent plans of the Needham Housing Authority will get scuttled just in communication that's not effective. I believe that we will not be able to serve the residents in the way that I know that they need and deserve. If you are open to this discussion, I would like to also put two things on the table. One is that I would certainly like to be part of this process. And John Watman sees that as a very important, that we have the commissioners and we have some committed community members who are part of this process, all of us pulling in the same direction for the Needham Housing Authority. And again, to that end, we would do the scheduling of the meeting through my office. The hardest thing you can do is schedule 5, 6, 7 people, but we would do that scheduling through my office. And it would, I hope, set the table for everyone to feel like they're engaged in a very fair and just process. So having said that, I would love to have some feedback. Hey, Janice.
I think Janice went to
Hi.
the words there.
Denise, I thank you for coming to the rescue. And I think all the other board members would agree that it might be time for a little intervention, just to help us out in such a great way. There's a lot of things happening right now. So we may need some guidance, and I certainly welcome the opportunity to be guided. So
I don't feel like I'm coming to the rescue, Janice. I feel like we're a team and everybody's got a position to play. And I have a position as state representative to play to help each of the board members and the staff to serve the residents of our town, to meet all the requirements of the state. And I was thinking playing my position on the team, what can I do? I think this might be the very thing. So thank you for your support, Janice.
Ed, go ahead.
I would like to thank Representative Garlick for giving us this time and this interest, which I think is so important. And I move that we accept her ideas for a reset.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second, and now we have discussion. Anything further you want to say there, Ed?
I just think that Representative Garlick is hit the nail on the head. We do have severe difficulties in communication within the board amongst ourselves. And we have, I think at the last meeting, we discussed the possibility of mediation. And as I recall, everyone was in agreement. So Representative Garlick can lead us in an effort that I believe we all agree to and help us to get through this. And I just think that's very generous of her to devote the time to us.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Hey, Eleanor, your turn.
okay.
And then I'll come back to you, Janice. Go ahead, Eleanor.
I also thank Denise for stepping in and, caring as much about the housing authority and the residents and staff as she does. And I agree that a reset would be very helpful. And it seems like what Denise is proposing would be a good way to move forward.
Great. And Janice, you had something there? Go ahead. Oh, so Penny.
Yeah,
Sorry, wait a minute. Penny was next. I've missed her down
Okay.
on the screen. Go ahead, Penny.
As you know, I think it's a wonderful idea, and the fact that we had already discussed it among ourselves is that in itself is a big support system. Just for clarification, you mentioned staff. Would staff be included in mediation, or would they have separate mediation, or is there a need for staff to be involved that way?
So I think, Penny, that's a discussion we'd ask John Wortman about how to move forward and who we're moving forward with. I just wanted to get it on the table when the very first time we discussed this, that I want to be part of this process. We'll see who else might be helpful.
Great.
Okay, Janice, you had an additional comment there.
yeah, I just wanted to say that, Denise, I'm in probably a little bit more unique situation being the resident commissioner. I have to, and I do go out and meet the residents at their home, and I'm kind of on the hook, and I may have to be a little more aggressive in what the residents want. And I stand for the residents, and I always will. And a lot of the other commissioners, they really don't, they're not in my realm of the residents and, where we stand. And sometimes they're not allowed enough time to speak at the board meetings. 3 minutes isn't enough to adjust your mic. And I think even last night at the CPC, I think they got 5 minutes, but residents need to be heard. Our voices need to be heard. That's the only way things get done. That's why we have a TO. That's why we have a board. That's why we have, different levels of staffing. And it just, the communication has to be open all around.
So Janice, I believe this is exactly the kind of thing that you want to discuss with John Wortman. And it's exactly the thing that I think of when I said that we're all a team, right? Everybody that I'm engaged with now, and anyone who's listening, cares deeply, right? But it's how can we talk to each other in a way that everybody is listened to, and how do we recognize the different responsibilities that we carry? People that have come into this with a certain focus are taking on great responsibility. And that it may give them a different lens on what's important or how to talk about something or how to do something. I sincerely believe that these are the things that John Wortman has the expertise to help us to get to that place. Everybody needs to play their position. I mean, I'm looking at each and every one of you, and I could sit here and I could tell you my own perception of your skills, of the talent that you bring to this, of the compassion that you have, each and every one of you, the commitment that you have had. And particularly when we think how difficult the times have been. And here you are, guys, here you are at 9 o'clock at night, hanging in there, doing the work, looking to the future. When I say that I respect each and every one of you, I do. And that's why I think that someone with much more skills than me, Janice, can help us to bring our best selves to each other, right? And then move the work forward.
Well said.
I guess I'll
you.
jump in. First of all, I too want to join everybody and say my deepest gratitude and thanks for you to taking the time to come tonight. But obviously you haven't come. You've come with a lot of thought and a lot of skill and a lot of caring. I think you're pretty skillful yourself, and I really appreciate the diplomatic way that you approach this whole thing. And I also want to just say, speaking for myself, I've worked with the other 4 people here, the other 4 commissioners, and Angie, and a while back with Cheryl as well, actually, in the 10 years ago. And I have absolutely not a shred of doubt that every single person on this call is here for 100% of the right reasons, and has put all their energy and commitment and caring and their wish to make the world a better place. They've brought it all to our small board of commissioners here. So, I have no doubt about that whatsoever. And I also have respect for all those people as well. I guess, me being who I am, I have no hesitation in trying this out. I'm just wondering, what are the next steps? And, do we meet Mr. Wortman or do you, it can be scheduled through your office, but can you kind of outline how the next month might go here?
So I asked John Wortman that myself, Reg, once he was indicating that he was willing and available to help us, because I think timing also matters here. We need someone who's available to us. I believe the next step would be the person in my office that I believe will be scheduling all of this is Maureen Callahan. And she will contact John Wortman for me and get a schedule from him that he might be available. For John, we all know this is a public meeting. He's very available in the evening. He believes in 90-minute meetings, but he said he could maybe go to 2 hours, but he thinks, we're most effective in 90 minutes. And on a side note, I'll tell you, I'm married to a scientist, and he only will sit in a meeting till the first time somebody repeats something that's been said. So I think 90 minutes probably gets us to that. We will get that schedule from John, and then we will circle around to all of you and find a date that works. And we will begin that work tomorrow around getting the dates, because we know this is a very hard thing. And I know now from tonight that there's also other work that you all have to do on a very short timeline. This work, I would make the case to you, is the most important, and it will help you in making the other decisions, whether you're talking about an interim executive director or you're talking about moving into hiring. Your ability to work together is going to make all the rest of that possible in a really positive way, I believe.
Well, I would say, I without fear of contradiction, I speak for everybody in that we totally agree with the thought of 90-minute or less meetings. We might disagree on many other things or maybe nothing, but that's one thing I agree with. So the next step is really to schedule, find a date and time that works for everybody's calendar for our initial 90-minute meeting is what you're saying.
That's right. And for all of you to decide if John is the right person for you, and for him to decide if the issues the board's presenting are the ones that he can be the most helpful with. And
That would be
that's
sort of
the
the
agenda
agenda.
of that first meeting. That's the agenda of the first
Got
meeting.
it. Great. All right. And then I'm just going to ask one more tacky question to pass on to Maureen, which is I would expect that, this, there's a proposal, a fee or something that we need to pay. So we need to just take care of the mechanics of that as well.
So I wanted first to get your reaction. I wanted first to have the go ahead. I had this discussion with John Walkman, and he said to me, so Denise, is this you and I as public servants, is this a pro bono thing? And I said, and I was just responding from my gut. I have to tell you, I was responding from my gut. But I said to him, no, John. I said, we live in America. America values what it pays for. And he believes that the cost for the first meeting would be $1,500. I want you all to know that either through my own resources or my begging the Chair of Ways and Means, which is in my actual plan, that I will pay for that first meeting. And then when you all decide if this is the right person you want to move forward, you can all discuss how that would be budgeted and what that would look like.
Well, thank you
But
very much.
this is how deeply committed I am to each and every one of you. Yeah.
And
That's very
Janice, you
generous.
had a comment there?
Yeah, wasn't there a motion on the table?
Yeah, no, we're in the discussion phase.
Oh,
We
we're still,
haven't-
I thought we were done.
I wanted to make sure everybody had said their piece here, and has everybody had a chance to, get their questions in and comments? So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. No, I don't have to make a motion. Sorry. Ed has made a motion. Would you repeat what your motion is? Just
Yes.
so for the,
My
so we
my
get-
motion
get
was
it in the
that
minutes.
we accept Representative Garlick's ideas on a reset to help us to move forward for mediation, to help us to move forward to develop better communication.
And
I
to
second
schedule-
it.
Yeah, and to schedule this first meeting is, I think, what you
Yes.
also say, right?
Right.
Great. And we have a second, and is there any further discussion?
Well, Janice already seconded it.
No, and I said, is there any further
Oh,
discussion?
okay.
Yeah. And hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And again, Denise, thank you so much for being here tonight.
My pleasure. Couldn't think of better folks to spend St. Patrick's night with.
Oh, God, that's right.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Forgot to wear my green tie here, so.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Feel free to listen in if you wish. Would you like me to?
Yeah, I
Was it
will stay
attendee
on,
here?
Reg.
Yeah.
No, I will
okay.
stay on. Yep,
Let
thank
me
you.
just change role to attendee. Here we go. Bye-bye. Let's see if this works. It does. Okay, great. Okay, on that, if I dare say it, uplifting note here, we come back to our agenda. So we are on agenda item number G, which is a bunch of status reports. We don't have to spend a lot of time going through this. Just touch on them here, and a couple of leftover motions and from last time, and a couple of new ones here. So first item number one is just to get a space report, redeployment report from Angie. How do we do on the office move, and are we back up and running, and is everything running smoothly?
Yes, it went really, the transition went so smoothly. I couldn't ask for a better move. So we're up and running and
Super. And any questions on that report? Go ahead. Jen.
Angie, I meant to, not the, I meant to say the reception area.
oh, okay, yeah. Where
Yeah, when you
Marie
walk in,
sits.
Marie's like 15
Yes,
feet away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. it's
And I like
nice.
the way
Did
the
you-
offices are spread around.
Did you walk
um,
around? Did you walk
No,
around?
no.
Oh, you should have.
Although I don't need to be invited. I can go. I didn't want to ruin the tour if that's what you were, I heard there may be in the minutes, I mean, in the packet, that you may have scheduled a tour and I didn't want to spoil it. So I didn't walk around.
Well, take up Angie up on her offer to stop
It
by
looked
next
nice,
year and
though.
take a
Looked
look at it.
Yeah, stop by
when you get
next
a
week.
chance. You know, when you're coming down 128 towards the south, just take the left exit on Highland Ave instead of the right, and you'll be there in 5 minutes.
Gotta
Okay.
fix those potholes over there, though. So get on.
Oh,
it.
they're even worse. Yeah. So potholes everywhere in Needham, unfortunately, given the weather here. Where any update on our plan to return
got her
unit
hand
number?
up. Penny's got a
return-
hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Penny, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
So rather than a scheduled tour, we can just show up, or should we call
Yeah,
ahead
just-
or what?
No, just drop in.
Any update on the plan to return unit 42 to service?
It's already returned.
Already-
HUD already put it on, so I think Nada's got someone already set up. And then Gary's just gonna put some doors on and it's ready to go.
Okay. Yes, Ed?
We have some unfinished business from October. And I had asked you to put a motion on the agenda regarding putting unit 42 back into rental. So I would like to be able to make this motion that goes under the heading of unfinished business.
So in the minutes last month, as I read them, we already decided to do that because of the after-school program wasn't reopening. And then Angie said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put unit 42 back in business. So do we need the motion anymore?
Well, yeah, there's more to it.
Go
All
ahead.
right, so anyway, I'm making the following motion that falls under the category of unfinished business from October. Okay, part of it's already been taken care of, but let me read it anyway. The Needham Housing Authority Administration staff will seek a new location vacating 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive, with the new location to be approved by the NHA Board of Commissioners. Number 2, the Captain Cook Community Room will be moved from the current location at number 42 into the space currently occupied by the Needham Housing Authority Administration staff at 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive. Number 3, the Captain Cook Community Room will continue to host the Cooks Bridge after-school program within the new location at 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive. Number 4, all necessary improvements will be completed before the community room is determined ready for occupancy by the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Number 5, Unit 42 will not be placed online for rental until the Captain Cook Community Room with the Captain Cook's Bridge After School program is moved into the new location at 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
So Ed and you and I discussed that motion the other day, and I said it'd been largely overtaken by events, and you agreed except with one exception that is on the agenda here. So maybe you could explain why we need this motion now.
Yes, because I want to make sure that the location at 28 is properly designed to house both the community room and the after-school program. And I want board approval of that so that we don't run into a situation where the head of the maintenance department can say, I've done all I can do, I can't do any more. And if it does not meet the specifications of the tenant, local tenant organization and the board of commissioners, then it will have to be completed.
Then why not make a motion just to that effect? Because the other two
Well, it's in the
have
motion.
already been done.
It's in the, I mean, it's already in the motion, so.
But would you consider
I'm-
just
I'm
making
saying
the
the same
motion,
thing.
the motion to that last part, which, isn't, would you just consider making a motion to that effect? Because
Okay.
right now we're
All right.
already moved
Yes,
into the
I
new
will-
office and we're already put the
I will-
unit
I
42
will
and we're
consider
getting
it.
it out. Yes, okay,
Okay,
great.
I will amend that motion that Unit 42 will not be placed online for rental until the Captain Cook Community Room with the Cooks Bridge After School Program is moved into the new location at 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive. That is the motion.
But it's already been placed on the market for rental. I mean, the part of
Well,
the
I'm
motion.
sorry, if we had taken this up in October or November or December, then it wouldn't be on the market for rental today. We just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I tried to make this motion back in October.
But last month we discussed this and it's in the minutes that we just approved. And maybe this is an example of a
No,
communication
I
problems
don't, I
we're
can't
having.
agree with you. I can't agree with your interpretation of what happened. And we can go back and we can research the minutes again, and we can put this off till next month if we need to. And in the meantime, we'll research the minutes and let's see what exactly was said.
Okay, that would be great. And maybe that we can use this in our first meeting with Mr. Wortman.
Absolutely.
All right. Why don't we proceed forward on that basis? And I would then ask Angie to do the third report here on, is there any update on the restoration of the community center to, and the after-school program at 28 Captain Robert Cook Drive? Has there anything been done, or has that been?
No,
Not
we're
started
worrying about vacancies right now, to get those vacancies. And so, and I meant to print it up and I forgot to. I think we're down finally to 7 vacancies. But so no, because we got until September. So the plan is Gary will go in there this summer and get that taken care of.
Well,
Right now, we need to get the units turned over, get them housed, which we're down to 7, and then Gary will figure out what he's gonna do this summer.
so, what was very clear from what Ed said previously to me is that he would like to have board involvement and board improvement as well as resident involvement in the.
Well, I won't be here, Rich, so you guys can figure that out once I leave. 'Cause
Okay.
let's
No,
be
I'm-
honest, I'm not here.
But you are here now, and Cheryl will be handling this question next month here.
Well,
I
it's really not, I don't think that's a board's issue, though. A board doesn't go in and design a community room. That's the
But-
tenant.
I'm just
and Gary.
saying, that you said you were not going to be here, in 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So, I'm just trying to be sensitive to what Ed is trying to say here. So,
We discussed it with Janice. Gary had said that when.
no,
when
that I'm not
that
asking
happened-
you. I think you got your report here, and maybe you disagree with Ed's suggestion. I get that, and we'll put that in the minutes, okay? But I would say, given what Ed said, to my ears for the minutes this time, and we'll talk about it the next meeting. Maybe we'll have Mr. Wortman's meeting by then. That there's the sense of the board that, the board be involved in the redesign and informed on every step of the way, as well as the residents here. So if I can leave it there in the interest of it being 9:23.
No,
Janice-
Reg, I don't think you can, because this has been on the agenda since last fall. Come on, who's kidding who? Let's get our community room back. The LTO wants that room this summer and before. We want to have our meetings there.
All right, so
And
let
I'm
me
speaking
say,
for the LTO.
yeah, so, we would like to make progress between now and our next meeting. And Cheryl, I'm going to look at you here, since the baton is being passed over to you here. Do you think you can help make progress so that when we have our next board meeting, and I know you reported that you were just getting up to speed and so forth and so on, we can have a more kind of concrete plan to make sure that we get the community room back into service, recognizing all the other things that are going here, but as quickly as possible. Can you take that one on?
Yes, Reggie, Angie and I will work on that. I do want to mention, that Angie's staff is just amazing. They're wonderful, awesome workers. And I'm sure that all of us will be able to come together with some kind of solution. Does that
Great.
help? Yeah. And be able to report to you for the April meeting.
Okay. So a concrete plan moving forward that involves resident input, um, board input, and then ultimately board approval. And I will say board approval is going to be ultimately needed, Ed, because it's going to involve the expenditures of money that's not in our budget now. So, that we will definitely have to do. But I think what you're saying is don't do it. It's not just when the budget shows up to be approved, but as the plan is coming together. That's what my ears are hearing from you. So, and I thank you for postponing it one more month because I know it's frustrating for you here. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd just like to move to the after school program, another very important thing that also needs to a fair amount of attention from our new management, meaning our new interim executive director and our new assistant executive director, because likely we're not going to have our new permanent executive director on board much before the end of the summer if we do very well. So Cheryl, I would just sort of add that one as another thing to your load of things you're carrying in your first, 3 weeks are you here?
3 weeks.
And the third week here.
Ah,
I guess your honeymoon period is over.
I think so.
And let's go on to agenda item number G3. Seabeds Cook CCTV system. There is a proposal we've received that's in the board packet. Is there any kind of status update on that, Angie?
No, just it's in the first phase of having a consultant come out and then letting us know where the cameras should be placed and so forth.
Okay, so we're starting forward with that, with using the grant money that you got. Thank you very much. And we had previously talked in previous board meetings that at some point when they've made recommendations, we will get some more resident input, because I would say our residents in that Seabeds Cook are about 50-50 divided, where half of them think this is a really great thing to do, and the other half of them think that no, this is kind of a little creepy and kind of Big Brother watching you. So I think we need to be.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. No one showed up. They couldn't make
Okay.
it.
Well, I think we maybe need to try again. Once we, and if nobody shows up again, then I don't know what we can do here. Maybe the tenants association can help us with attendance there.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You put out a bulletin for a meeting, Angie? On the TV cameras?
No, I invited the LTO who couldn't make it. No one in the LTO could make it, or the tenant organization could make it.
Oh, when was that, if you don't mind?
We were still at Captain Robert Cook when he came down. He was walking the sites. Jessica knows about
Oh,
it. Sue knows
yeah,
about it.
oh, okay, the walk around. Yeah, I
That's
recall.
right, yep. Yep, the
Okay,
camera guy. Yep.
yeah. So have you decided did they decide anyway where they're going?
Well, he has a whole plan, but I just gotta move forward with it, and then he'll release that plan to me. I don't think it's many, I can tell you that. I don't think it was many cameras.
Yeah. Okay,
At
so
all.
it's not gonna come by the board though, is it? No,
No,
it's day to day, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, like I said, I've been approached both at meetings, and everybody else has here, as well as in between meetings, and their opinion is split on this. And I just think we need to be really sensitive that there's really two very different viewpoints out there as to what we're going forward with here. So anyway,
So I have another question.
hmm.
Since there's gonna be no Rosario, who's gonna run the cameras? Or who's gonna monitor them? I don't know.
So Janice, the whole big thing of having the cameras, right, is if, let's say, God forbid, an elderly person falls on one of the potholes, right? we can go back.
Incident reports.
That's right. So anyone could do it. Well, it would be Gary and probably Cheryl. I wouldn't have everybody access to it. I'd probably just have Cheryl, you should just have yourself and the ED and Gary, who can go back and look at the cameras.
How easy you think it'll be to hack those cameras, though?
Oh, I don't think it'd be that easy. They're not, this is a professional company coming in and it's all computerized, so it's not that easy.
Are they
I-
gonna be mounting, like cell phone, like a tower to, are they gonna, build their own mounts, to install them on?
No, because it goes all through the internet. So they'll put something in the community room that picks up the internet, and that's how it'll all go through.
No, I mean, where are the, when you situate the cameras,
Yeah.
they're not gonna be up in the trees, right?
No.
They gotta be
no, it'll
mounted somewhere.
No, it'll be visible. And I think he said it's only going to be about 7 cameras total throughout both places.
So let me suggest that once we get the proposed plan, you'll
It
see
goes into
exactly
the
what
budget,
the
yeah.
answer is to those questions.
What
And
you should do, Cheryl, is hold a tenant organization meeting when the plan comes in with
Yeah.
Jessica,
and I've
or a
seen
tenant meeting,
these,
resident meeting.
I've seen these systems on other apartment buildings. Anybody wants to look for them can go back, to almost any other apartment building in Needham, even the older ones, but certainly the newer ones, the Moderna and so forth. And you just look up and you'll see what it looks like. It's hard to, unless you're looking for them, you won't notice anything. So, but let's go ahead for the sake of this meeting and wait until we get the actual proposal, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay.
And I just want to make safe again for the record that the other reason we're doing this is for security, not just potholes and trip and falls, but it's just the way things are in this day and age. Should there be a robbery or some sort of unfortunate incident, this also gives the Needham police the opportunity to really jump on top of whatever is going on. And it serves as a deterrent because the bad guys will come in to our quiet community. They will look up there and they will see it, and then they'll go away and they won't bother us here, hopefully. So it's a deterrent thing as well. I'm going to move on to number 4, new tenant commissioner guidelines. These were developed by DHCD and put out its PHN 2022-05. I'm just putting this agenda item here to note for the record that they're there. They pretty much only apply to our tenant commissioners, who is currently Janice Bennett. And it's something we've already discussed many times before. And I didn't see anything, particularly new about them, but just so we could say that we, recognize they were here. This is why they're on the agenda today. I'm not looking for any comments unless anybody wants to say something here. You can read them for yourself in your board packet as well. Next one in, I put in a return to in-person board meetings, and in the interest of time, I've already spoken to it at the beginning of the meeting, so we don't need to get into it here. But I did want to ask one question while it's fresh on everybody's memory, which is to do a hybrid meeting, we're going to need additional technology and somebody to run it during the meetings. And for the first time last night when I was at the public hearing, they were using the new technology. It's not so new anymore that the town had been brought in. And Penny, I know you asked a question, so you were logged in and watching the meeting. I saw you had a video link. How well, it's called OWL technology. It actually, the unit looks like a little mechanical owl that's sitting on the table in front of Peter Pingator. And it has a 360 camera on the top and it's like a big fancy speakerphone that connects into Zoom. What was the quality of that experience as an audience member listening to the meeting, watching the meeting? You're on mute there, by the way.
I thought it worked really well.
Okay.
Everybody who wanted to speak, you could see them and hear them well, and there was not very much delay getting it working, and Yeah, it was pretty smooth.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the chief of video conferencing technology of the Needham Housing Authority to reach out to the town and learn how this whole thing works. I asked them about it after the meeting. Apparently, the unit itself costs about $1,000, and hopefully we can talk about it tomorrow, at our next meeting, because we've got April, May, and maybe June, and then I think we're going to go back to in-person meetings with a demand from our attendees to continue doing it on a hybrid basis as well. So stay tuned here. Thank you, Penny. Next, number 6, item G6 is board's rules of procedure. It was on our agenda last month at the very end of the meeting, and I asked that it be postponed until this month. Actually, it was first teed up in January. It's a document that's been worked on by Eleanor and Ed, and it's before us, and it's in your board packet one more time for a review and approval. One of the reasons I was concerned and wanted to postpone it is I was concerned that maybe Ed had some second thoughts about some additional fine tuning that needed to go in here. But if not, I'm happy to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve it tonight here.
So,
Go ahead, Ed.
Since Eleanor did such a magnificent job of editing this, I think she should make the motion and present it.
okay, I was gonna say so moved.
Okay. And do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Since you were an author, Ed and Penny, there's a relationship. Maybe could I ask Janice to second it here? Or I will second it. Second by Janice. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? There are none. It passes 5-0. I will do my level best to make this work over the next month. And to the extent it needs some fine tuning, additional fine tuning, we can talk about that next month, but hopefully not. All right. Ed has proposed a couple of new topics, agenda items. First one is on snow removal. Ed, you have the floor.
I sent out pictures to everybody for discussion at a future meeting. It's my understanding that the resident in that end unit of this picture is an 84-year-old woman who walks with a cane. And when we plow this fire lane, there is a tool shed or a shed at the end of the fire lane. And the snow is being plowed to the right of that shed, which you can see from the picture that hopefully everybody looked at when they got it, that an accumulation of snow somewhere between 18 and 24 inches is blocking her patio exit. And my safety concern is that if there's a fire in the hallway for the front exit of the building, and she has to come out of her through her patio, that she is going to have an extremely difficult time trying to get through 18 to 24 inches of snow before she can get out to the plowed area. Now, to the left of the tool shed, the shed, is open space. So it would be just as easy to plow to the left of the shed as it is to plow to the right of the shed. And it just makes no sense to me that we're potentially blocking, if we had an emergency, the second exit that this tenant would have to use. So with this, am making the motion that our head of maintenance instruct whoever is plowing the fire lane to move the snow to the left of the shed instead of the right of the shed. So that's the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
Janice, you got in there first. Is there
I
any-
wanted to say something about
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. I thought you were seconding here. but go ahead. So seconded by Penny. Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, I did go up there and look at that, and I did find that if there was a fire in that area of the building, both egresses would be blocked for that woman to get out at 84 years old. And especially if the snow could be moved elsewhere. We didn't really have that much snow this year. I mean, we've been brutally battled, like in 2015 down here, where we had a storm every week of 10, 12 inches bombarded, and that did not happen. So, yeah, I think that should be looked at.
Okay, are there any other comments, Eleanor? Go ahead.
So I'm in favor of the idea of plowing the snow to the other side of the shed. But I just don't think that this is an appropriate item to be at the board level. I think that it should be addressed with the staff directly, because I just don't think that this level, and perhaps maybe there has been efforts to do that, I don't know. But I just don't, I'm uncomfortable getting into this level of detail at the board level.
I think the TO addressed it.
Okay, all right, thank you, Janice. Ed, go ahead.
I did address it with our executive director, who informed me that that was not an exit and that we had always, we never plowed grassy areas, and she was not going to change. So that's why I'm bringing it up as a board issue, because I think it's a safety issue. And the executive director indicated to me that she was not going to change it.
The reason why I said that, Eleanor, was that same day when he reached out, when Ed called the service line,
Answering service.
the answering service, to have one of the maintenance guys call him with an update. Maintenance went there and took pictures. His angle is not showing. There's about 4 feet of an area, a path area with maybe 3 to 4 inches of snow, that whoever, if there was a fire, unfortunately, yeah, you're gonna have to walk through snow. That tenant was not blocked in. It's a patio area. It's all grass in that area. That's your angle, Ed. That's the angle of your picture that you took.
Okay,
We also
okay,
have-
okay. I'm gonna try not
We
to
also
have
have
this
pictures that
degenerate.
Reg has, that
Yeah.
Gary sent.
All
So, Gary doesn't think it makes sense to push it on the other side for one reason or another.
Yeah. So let me, thank you, Angie. Is there any other new comments on this subject here? Go ahead, Penny.
I disagree with Gary. There's absolutely no reason not to put the snow on the other side. And I agree with you, Eleanor. This is a day-to-day thing. In a way, it's a policy, but it should have been easily handled instead of resisted.
84 years old.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned that. Is there anything new you have to say there, Janice? And you want to add?
84 years old. No, nothing new.
All right. Well, I would say maybe this is a good example to bring to the table of communications in our meeting with Mr. Wortman.
Yeah, board dysfunction.
And well, you know, because it's relatively, compared to some of the very complicated things we're going to have to get done with the modernization and redevelopment initiative, this one should be fairly easy here. So, yeah.
I
Sorry, let me
disagree.
let me just finish my comment. Now I'll come back to you, Janice, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't have an opinion because I haven't been there taking pictures and looking it over and so forth, because, you know, maybe a different way of saying what Eleanor is saying is, I think we ought to rely on our staff, our maintenance staff, and our executive leadership to make sure that there are good fire exits available as best as possible. You know, given the snow, whatever the snow conditions is. And I agree with Janice that if it was 2015, there was literally there were snow piles up to everybody's, ceilings everywhere, and there was no place for snow. So it all depends from year to year. So that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, if we want to go back to, the chain of command, if you will, or steps to solution, as Denise pointed out, I believe the tenant association was notified and it was brought to the attention, and we've brought it probably as far as we could go. So Eleanor, I think, the steps up to solution, and here we are at the board level. This is an 84-year-old woman. Give me a break, please. Everyone knows somebody that's 84. That's it.
Okay, any further new comments for anybody to make? Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
It looks like we're not gonna have a unanimous vote, so let me backtrack. We have to do a roll call vote here. So, I guess, Commissioner Seidler, are you in favor of this motion here?
yes,
Commissioner Kirk,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Foster, in the interest of mediation, I'm going to abstain from the vote in hopes that we can do better. So the motion passes 3 to 1 opposed with 1 abstention here. Okay. Yes, Janice.
I just hope this vote is not going to qualify us for a dysfunctional board. I mean, I just don't like that term.
Okay, well, let's not use the term. One of the things a mediator will do is help us correct the language that we use. A good mediator will do that sort of thing, and
Good.
not use pejorative or language that implies an opinion as opposed to just describing what's happening here. Let me go on to number 8, EG8, another motion from or topic at least from Mr. Scheidler here, inviting guests to board meetings. Go ahead.
I move that any commissioner and any executive director be allowed to bring any guest into our meetings if they're not being paid, and that any paid guest that is invited to the meeting will require board approval for the payment. Is there a second to that motion?
I think you mean board approval in advance for the payment, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Board approval in advance of the meeting.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Hearing none. What? I'm sorry.
Penny,
You've scared me a little bit. I get the feeling I'm not supposed to second the motion presented by my husband, but I'd like to second it.
Okay, seconded by Penny Kirk. No, I wasn't intending to scare you in any way whatsoever, but I thought the motion that I mentioned that I thought it would look better on
Yep.
the record.
I understand.
It was seconded by another commissioner, but in this case, you feel strongly enough about it that you want to second it yourself. So you certainly get to do that. All right, so we have a motion that is seconded. Ed, would you like to present your rationale for doing this?
In the, I believe it was December meeting, we had the 2 attorneys Driscoll debating with me over motions that I wanted to present. And I think that it was quite unfair that I was not aware that that was going to be the situation ahead of time. And I just felt it was an ambush. And it was a very unfair situation to put me in. And I think that the board should be aware ahead of time, before a meeting, of any such plan.
Okay. Any comments from any other commissioners? Go ahead, Penny.
Well, I think I expressed this at the last meeting. The Driscolls came to frighten me, and they did. And it was, I thought, very unfair. And then they charged us a bunch of money to do it. So I'm sorry that I voted the way I did that night, and I've said that before. I wish I could recant it, but I can't, apparently. So I think what they presented was totally unfair. And as I said before, I checked with my own lawyer, who assured me that they could not sue me.
Okay, any other comments from any of the other commissioners? Oh, I'll get back to you, Ed, but go ahead, Janice.
Okay, just a little more detail to what Penny just
No, I
said.
was saying Janice, if you don't
Oh, I'm
mind.
sorry,
Yeah,
yes, you- right.
Yeah, go ahead, Janice.
Well, I think that was a totally unfortunate incident. And you know, I think it's like tit for tat a little bit when it comes to our own attorneys, if I'm able to refer to them in that way. Angie? Are you listening? They are our attorneys.
They are, yes.
Okay. And given the hour that they came, the 3 hours that they spent, that's overtime of the ordinary day. They should be paid. Anyone that has a day job, anyone that's paid, anyone that has a day job that comes after hours, whether it be a consultant, a lawyer, they should be paid.
Right,
Everybody needs to be paid for what they do,
right.
especially that
It's
was
their
after
time.
hours.
That's right.
And I don't even think they charged
Let
us all
Janice
that
answer
much,
again. Go ahead, Janice.
considering that there was 2 of them, and you have to cut the money down the middle and then divide it between the 2 of them, the 3.5 hours, because they did stay for the whole meeting. So, you know, I think everybody deserves to be paid for their time. As far as us having to know in advance whether we're gonna have to pay them or not, I would go with that's a no-brainer. If they're a consultant in any way, shape, or form, they need to be paid without board approval. So, sorry, Ed.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Go ahead, Eleanor.
So my concern about this is that sometimes there are situations where we have things that, special meetings that get called where we have to talk about things like when we had that, the arbitration, the labor arbitration and the related lawsuit. And so sometimes there are decisions that we have to make where we have to have a special meeting called on short order, where we need to talk to, say, the lawyer, and to have a board meeting in advance of the board meeting to approve that we're going to have that lawyer, for example, come and talk is not really practical. And it also wouldn't really work to have it be you vote at the beginning of the meeting that the person who we're paying is present for, because if we vote no, then they've come to the meeting and need to leave, but they've taken their time out to come to the meeting. So I just would not want to tie our hands in that way. Although, I think, yes, there should be notice ahead of time in terms of, the agenda for the meeting, that somebody is going to be, someone along a guest like this. But similarly, when we have the auditor come, I don't think we should have to take a board vote, the meeting before, and similar professionals. And also, I don't know that this would ever be the case of having NHA staff who are paid overtime, who are non-exempt employees. But if for some reason one of them were to come to address the meeting, I wouldn't want the board to have to vote on that ahead of time either. It just seems to tie our hands and limit us in what we're able to do.
Okay.
I also believe he was on the agenda, right, Reg?
Okay.
He was on the agenda.
Angie, I'll call on you and give you a chance, but hang in there a second, okay? Go ahead, Ed.
With Eleanor's usual cautious consideration and thoughtfulness, bringing up an issue that I did not anticipate, that in an emergency situation, that this motion would create an embarrassing situation if we said no. I withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Next.
Yep, I guess I want to go to next, but I also want to just say something for the record and public that I've said to Ed in private, which is that it was certainly not my intent for it to turn out the way it did and it come across as an ambush, as you described it, and you've had some other choice ways of describing it as well that are similar. And I want to send, and especially in the interest of the spirit that Denise raised earlier this evening, of heading towards mediation and doing a better job of communication. I just want to apologize to you for whatever my part is for having caused this,
And I accept
going
your,
on you. And you did say that at the time, so I just want to get that on the record. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. We are now at our routine report. Remember, we do have an executive session ahead, hopefully very brief one. But we have our routine reports in section 8 that are all in your board packet. Are there any questions on any of our routine 4 or 5 reports that we get every month? And I will just say for the record that I noticed with great pleasure what Angie already reported earlier, which was almost all of our vacancy rates are sort of back where they belong. And thank you very much to Angie and the staff for that. But are there any other questions or comments that anybody has? And if not, we'll move to the executive session here. Go ahead, Penny.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to refer to page 25, the list of expenses. 2/3 of the way down, the OD answering services charged $450. It was during that time that I called twice and expressed my concern about this pile of snow in front of that lady's second exit. And the person who answered said, a maintenance person will call you within a few minutes. No one ever called. So I'm just wondering if they're earning their money.
All right, well, let's just take that as a offline for an answer because we already just approved this expense at the beginning of the meeting here.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right. So we are now on agenda item.
Oh, I think Janice had raised her hand.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Eleanor, Janice, I mean.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, now we're at agenda item I, to adjourn to executive session, and I'm just going to read this motion that has to be done by roll call vote. Let me just maybe pause here, and no, let me just go forward here. So it's a motion to adjourn to executive session under the provisions of exception number 6 of the open meeting law to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. At the conclusion of the executive session, the board will return to open session to vote, speak on any decisions we may have made and to vote on resolution 2022-2025, which involves what happens to the CPA funding application. Our third one that's under consideration by the CPC for the purchase of the East Militia Heights Drive property. So I make a motion that we approve that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and before I call the roll call vote, I just want to note again for the attendees that we are going to use for the first time a completely unproven technique of trying to adjourn to executive session while not causing the webinar to come to an end because of the limitations of the Zoom technology here. And so once we approve this motion, the webinar will remain active. It's up to you folks if you want to wait us out. I'm not quite sure how long we'll be in executive session. Probably at least a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then when we're ready, we will adjourn back into the public meeting and, talk about what we discussed in terms of any decisions that we have to disclose in public meeting. Go ahead, Eleanor.
So just to clarify, so I understand we got that other Zoom link, but
Yeah.
then do the board members leave, like hit the leave button for this meeting? No,
So
but,
I actually don't know.
I don't know
But I
either.
don't.
because if we
think
don't
so.
hit the leave button, wouldn't,
No,
I
I
don't-
would just all go on mute. I would all mute this
Yeah.
one so that
oh,
no
mute,
one. would-
okay.
Let me
And then log
tell
into
you,
the new one.
let me tell you the result of my research here, which is it was impossible to tell. And so if Zoom won't let you into a second meeting, then you probably will have to leave this meeting and then log back into this meeting. Meanwhile, I have a technique of signing in that avoids that problem. So I will stay with this meeting going as the host of the meeting, which should keep it alive. Normally I would have tested all of this out yesterday, but we didn't discover this glitch until an hour or two before this meeting here. So in theory, this will work, but I will tell the attendees that there's some chance that we won't be able to return to this meeting. If that's the case, then we will have to, I think we're probably going to have a meeting next week, but we'll have to finish out any public discussion in another published scheduled meeting open to the public here. So sorry for the iffiness here. Go ahead, Ed.
So what are we supposed to do? I just
So
sit tight?
too many questions. Everybody stay logged into this meeting. I'm going to suspend it. Okay, I have a, and then I'm going to go join you in the other meeting that Angie sent you the login to. Okay.
Just one question. It's
Oh,
not possible.
I,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay, I was not aware that Angie sent it. I haven't looked at my emails for a little while, so
Yeah.
I should have an email that I can log into.
Yes. Do you want to take a look now before we part company
Yeah.
here?
I'm gonna have to change devices here.
Okay.
And just one question, there's not a way to do a breakout in
No,
this meeting?
no. I thought there was, but there isn't. And it's again a technology limitation here.
Can we try to get into it now?
Oh,
for
sure.
Zoom?
Sure.
Angie, you got it? You have it logged in?
Why don't you put yourself on mute and turn off your video on this meeting here, okay?
It's waiting for Angie to start the meeting, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
can't
and
get
when
in.
I
Yeah, you
just
gotta-
tried it, it said you have to leave the other meeting.